greatest fight of all time. Because the guy that won it, Justin Gaethje, was in many books 6-1 favorite, 6-1 underdog rather, which is crazy odds for a guy that was a interim lightweight champion, fought the best of the best, one of the best to ever do it, BMF champion. I mean, just super durable, real dangerous guy. And that's how good Ilia Topuria is. That's how good Ilia Topuria is. Ilia Topuria, in many people's eyes, is the most skilled of the new generation, and the new generation is the most skilled of all time. And Ilia was like the top of the mountain. And most people thought that he was going to be too much, and he was too much.
So confident that like going there and knock him out. When he was like a coming distance, he didn't even use his jab. He was just wanting to throw his right hand and knock him out right away. But like Justin, he's a dog, you know, and like he has a good chin. To stop him with his jab, you know, and Justin's jab was so good. Ilia, I think like he's like a Canelo and like the best boxing, but it didn't work, you know, and like Justin did a.
Ilia Topuria go from here?
Ooh, Ilia Topuria. What's next? Take a break, dude. Take a year off. Like, look at his face. I think another big fight. Something like a Patty. I think even Armin.
Topuria's not going to come back soon enough to fight for #1 contender. If Gaethje doesn't retire, he fights Armin.
And I think also, as much as I'm a fan of Ilia, it shuts down all this conversation of him versus...
You gave him all the respect in terms of like his skill set in there. You know, said probably the second best guy you prepared for outside of Khabib. But now that you're through Ilia, was he as good as you thought he was? Was he better than you thought he was? Just can you talk about what you experienced in there with him?
I mean, he's very good. I mean, my liver still hurts right now. Those body shots were crazy. I mean, he was really, really fast, but you know, when he didn't get the finish at the end of the second round, I think it really took his spirit. And you know, again, I said it in the press conference leading up. I was like, he really backed himself into a corner, saying he's going to be so dominant. And I said it. When we go to the second round, you're going to be like, what the? When we go to the third round, you're going to be like, what the? You know, that's what I did tonight.
Did you feel he was broken after he didn't get that finish?
I never felt he was broken because he was so dangerous at the whole time. But in the third round, when I started landing those jabs, when he started finding his back foot, I knew something was there.
Yeah, well, he with that one.
He's such a pretty boy that he was so concerned about the blood so immediately. I hit him with the uppercut. He's bleeding and he started touching it over and over and over. But I mean, he's so fucking dangerous. You know, I don't know how I stayed away from some of those shots. He definitely rocked me, but you know, I just kept telling myself that to just trust my abilities, you know, not be emotional. And again, when I say I don't have emotions, like nothing feels better than what I feel.
I want to get your thoughts.
It's one of the greatest fights you'll ever see. It was incredible. And especially when you got a guy 8-1 underdog and then comes in and does what he did tonight. The body shots that Ilia hit Gaethje with in that round, and then Gaethje gets through it. Ilia's in the hospital. He's busted up. I'm not a doctor, but his eye looked like he probably has a broken orbital. And my plans for him are to go home and rest.
Ilia Topuria has been treated like an untouchable force ever since the night he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski and announced himself as one of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts. From that moment forward, everything about his career seemed to move at lightning speed. Fans viewed him as the next dominant champion. Analysts praised his confidence, precision, and knockout power. The UFC promoted him as one of the faces of the sport's future. Everywhere you looked, the narrative was the same. Ilia Topuria wasn't just another champion. He was being presented as a once-in-a-generation talent capable of ruling an entire division for years to come. But then UFC Freedom 250 happened, and suddenly that narrative was challenged in a way nobody expected. Justin Gaethje, one of the most battle-tested fighters in the history of the lightweight division, stepped forward and essentially told the MMA world that the image surrounding Topuria was bigger than the reality. He didn't simply criticize a performance. He questioned the entire perception that had been built around the champion. And when a fighter with Gaethje's reputation says something that bold, people pay attention immediately. The reason these comments hit so hard is because of who Justin Gaethje is and what he represents. This is not a fighter trying to create headlines or generate attention through controversy. This is a man who has spent years fighting the toughest opponents available. He has shared the cage with champions, contenders, knockout artists, and elite wrestlers. He has survived wars that would have ended most careers and built a reputation as one of the most dangerous competitors the sport has ever seen. When someone with that level of experience publicly questions another fighter's greatness, it carries a completely different level of credibility. Topuria's rise to the the top has been nothing short of remarkable. His undefeated record, devastating punching power, and supreme self-belief have helped create an aura that very few fighters ever achieve. He doesn't just enter fights expecting to win. He enters fights expecting to dominate. That confidence has become a major part of his identity. In many ways, it reminds fans of some of the sport's biggest stars throughout history. The problem is that once a fighter reaches that level of hype, expectations become almost impossible to satisfy. Every performance gets examined under a microscope. Every weakness becomes a major talking point. Every criticism grows louder than it otherwise would. That is exactly why Joe Rogan's reaction became such a significant part of the story. Rogan has spent decades watching elite fighters perform at the highest level. He has called some of the greatest fights in UFC history and witnessed countless champions rise and fall. He understands the difference between ordinary trash talk and genuine criticism from a respected competitor. When Rogan reacted with visible surprise to Gaethje's comments, it felt less like someone hearing a promotional soundbite and more like someone recognizing that a serious challenge had just been issued. At the heart of Gaethje's argument is a question that many fans had not seriously considered before. Has Ilia Topuria truly been tested by the type of opposition that defines greatness at lightweight? Nobody disputes the spectacular knockouts. Nobody disputes the championship victories. The highlights are real. The accomplishments are real. But according to Gaethje, there is a difference between looking dominant and proving yourself against every possible style that the division has to offer. The lightweight division has always been one of the most unforgiving divisions in mixed martial arts. It is filled with fighters who combine elite striking, endless cardio, relentless pressure, and years of championship-level experience. Surviving at the top requires more than talent. It requires adaptability. It requires durability. It requires the ability to win ugly when things are not going according to plan. Gaethje believes that Topuria has not yet faced enough situations where those qualities are truly tested. From a technical perspective, the criticism is interesting because it highlights a stylistic challenge that many experts have discussed for years. Topuria thrives when he can control distance, set traps, and unleash precise combinations at exactly the right moment. His timing is exceptional. His boxing is sharp. His ability to capitalize on mistakes is among the best in the sport. However, fighters like Gaethje create chaos instead of structure. They don't allow opponents to settle into comfortable rhythms. They force constant adjustments, constant movement, and constant decision-making under pressure. Gaethje's entire career has been built around making elite fighters uncomfortable. His forward pressure is relentless. His willingness to absorb punishment in order to land his own shots is almost unmatched. His pace can turn technical contests into exhausting wars of attrition. Against many opponents, that pressure becomes overwhelming. And according to Gaethje, that kind of challenge is exactly what Topuria has not fully experienced at lightweight. Whether that assessment is fair or not is ultimately something only future fights can answer. But the fact that the question now exists is significant in itself. Combat sports are driven by narratives, and narratives can change quickly. One dominant victory can elevate a fighter to superstar status. One disappointing performance can completely alter public perception. Sometimes a single statement from the right person at the right time can create doubts that linger for months or even years. That is where Topuria finds himself now. Every future appearance will be viewed through the lens of Gaethje's comments. Every opponent will be compared against the standard that Gaethje believes is necessary to prove true greatness. Fans will no longer simply ask whether Topuria can win. They will ask how he wins, who he beats, and whether he answers the specific questions that have now been raised about his game. The pressure is immense because silence is not really an option. If Topuria ignores the criticism, some people will interpret it as uncertainty. If he responds emotionally, others will argue that the comments affected him. The most effective response would be to let his performances speak for themselves.